Hi everyone, welcome to part 2 of our picture from Walk in the Woods by Leila Duly. Now we are going to be doing the elderberries today to start with. I have actually found some photos of them just so that I can look at the colours. Now they're very black, but the stems are quite sort of reddish. So we've got Polychromos again. I'm actually going to start with the red violet, and I'm going to use this as a base for all of the berries as well as for their stems. So let's just get started. And as I say, they are black, but there's a sort of hint of red rather than purple like the blackberries. So we're going to do the stems. This isn't quite the right colour for the stems, but it's a good start, and I'll mix it up a bit. But when I say they're red, I don't mean scarlet or, you know, that sort of red. We're very much of a purpley vein. I did go make a coffee, like I said I was going to. You had a whole day between seeing this and the last video, potentially. Maybe not, depends if you're a member of the channel. Channel members get compilation videos, so on the first day or a little earlier when a series comes out, members get a compilation version early as a thank you for their support to the channel. There are different levels of membership on offer now, but they all give you exactly the same. They just allow you to pay different amounts depending on how much you want to donate to the channel, really. Obviously donations help with the costs of running the channel. It's not huge. There are a few costs like pencils and books and things like that, but also if I ever need to buy new bulbs for my light, it's covered the cost of me buying a better camera and things like that. So it's always lovely to have, you know, I always appreciate their help, so that I can just improve things. You know, I've bought lights, you know, better lamp, as I say, better camera, that sort of thing. And oh, it also pays for the I'm just trying to work out whether the leaf stems are, no, the leaf stems aren't red. It's that I use some software to make my thumbnails for YouTube. I really hate making thumbnails and making, like, just doing any graphic design. I just, it never looks pleasing to me. It's just a, So anyway, I've now got some software which I pay for, which I can use to do it. And they have templates and backgrounds and things like that. So it makes it so much easier for me. So that helps towards that as well. So it keeps it more fun, which is good. Because there are certain bits of all jobs that are dull, of course, but that is just like, ugh. Now I am going to grab a little bit of caput mortuum violet to put over the stem parts. So I'm just going to darken them up a little bit. Now the bits near the actual berries are quite narrow, but here I'm thinking I might make them a little bit dark on the edges if I can. Yeah, I brought my coffee through because it's still hot, so I've riskily got a drink in here, which is something I very rarely do. Can't trust myself not to spill it everywhere. So I put it quite far away, but hopefully I can have a little stir later. It'll be too warm now. It sounds a bit rude, I had to escape because husband he was in the kitchen cooking and he started chattering to me about some video he'd been watching, and I was like, it is interesting, but if I stay and listen I'm never going to get my video done, and I'm really excited because I want to do it. Right. The colour of the berries is actually more of a bluey black. So before I put on my black, I'm actually going to grab a bit of Delft blue. I don't want a real blue because I think it'll just look a little, I think a slightly purpley blue is going to be better. So I'm just going to put a layer of that on. They shouldn't look too much like the blackberries, hopefully. They will be fairly similar, seeing as they're actually the same, they're black. Anyway. I do love the colour of elderberries. They all look so tasty, like they're going to be sweet and juicy and delicious. I've got no idea what they actually taste like. People don't just eat them, so I'm assuming they are as tart as anything, because you usually use them to make wine or jelly, I think. Sometimes a jam. I'm not sure. Now, I had a conversation with you guys before, you know, with the camera, about jelly and jam in America, and my understanding is that although jelly is the stuff in a jar that you eat with peanut butter, it is more of a seedless set, almost a set fruit juice, whereas jam might have lumps of fruit in it or a preserve. This is the black. Now we're going to do what we did with our blackberries. We're going to go all the way around the edge, making them darker on that edge. Don't forget the little flower bit, and a little bit lighter towards the middle. So got, helps to give us some shape and shine. Because we can get, is it Welsh's grape jelly? Is that right? I think. And that is got no, it's like our jelly. See, jelly here is like Jello. In America, same thing. But it's just the Welsh's jelly or jam, it seems just like a slightly runnier Jello, so no bits in it. So I don't know, maybe I should look it up. But I suspect there's differences across country and from different families as well, because in the UK we have so many different dialects and ways of speaking, and we're such a small country compared to the US, where I'm assuming you have the same sort of thing, where you have huge dialects differences, different words for different things. You know, you can travel across UK and you know you can buy like a bread roll, or sometimes it's called like a bap or a bun, that sort of thing. There are so many different names for them. Cob, I think sometimes they're called, that sort of thing. And whereas for me a bap is a very specific type of roll, which is very large and flat. But in some countries that's just what they call every type of roll. And the same like the end of the bread. You know when you buy a sliced loaf and there's a piece top and bottom which has got all the cooked edge of the bread on. Those get called different names in different parts of the country. Some people just call them the crust, but of course the crust is the bit all around the slice of bread as well, so that's a bit confusing. But we always called it the crust. Some people just call it the end, you know, and there are different words. There is a word for it which is a bit naughty, which I'm not going to say in case I get striked by YouTube, but that word is quite cool. That's a word that I sometimes use just to make my children giggle because we're childish. But it's not the word that I ever grew up using. We always just said the crust. And so apparently the word crust might come from upper crust, but I don't know. So I read somewhere. But it's fascinating, the English language, because our very original language in Wales is of course Welsh, as there aren't a huge amounts of native Welsh speakers anymore, but you know that was one of the original languages in the British Isles or the UK. I guess. Well, we're really talking about the British Isles, not Ireland. In Britain. It's confusing, isn't it? So, the country at the bottom is England, the one to the left is Wales, and the one at the top is Scotland. The other island is called Ireland. However, that's split into two halves, Ireland and Northern Ireland. Northern Ireland is part of the United Kingdom, which is England, Scotland, Wales, and Northern Ireland. And the island, which just contains Scotland, Wales, and England, is called Britain, Great Britain. So, so it's confusing, isn't it? However, and in years gone by, the different counties in the country would get split into different areas, a bit like states, I suppose, but counties, that used to have different kings. So there were lots and lots of kings and queens across the whole of the country, not just one. And then Scotland used to have their own royalty separate to England, but Wales have never had one separate to them. Anyway, I was talking about language. So there are very, very few Welsh words in the English language at all. I had a look, very few. And in Scotland, they speak Gaelic or Gaelic, depending on how you pronounce it, different ways. And there are very few Scottish words as well. We have words like loch, which means lake for Scotland. Scottish lakes are always called lochs, but it is just a lake. And a cairn is a pile of rocks on a beach, which is a Scottish word, I think. There are a few Welsh words, but I can't remember them now. But most words are... We have quite a lot of French words because the French ruled us for a while. And when the French were in charge, if you think William the Conqueror, if you know any English history, you may not, he was William of Normandy, so he was French. And the nobility all spoke French completely for quite a while. So which is quite interesting. And so we have loads of French words like chandelier and maisonette and yes, now I'm trying to think of words. Leaves. I'm doing leaves though. I'm just looking at my elder photos and the leaves look quite light and bright. So I might be quite daring and start with a really pale colour and then build up some colour. I'm thinking I'm going to go with this light green. It's really pale, but they are such bright leaves in the picture. So I'm going to start with this, and we will knock it back with some darker colours later, so it won't matter. But this will be my sort of base. And yes, so if you think about our country, you know, we were taken over, we were ruled by the French, and we invaded by Vikings. So there's some Scandinavian, not much. I think we've got one or two Icelandic words in our language, but I can't remember what they are. We have all sorts going on. And I think, and also our grammatical rules are extremely confusing and inconsistent. So, you know, we have rules like I before E except after C, or V, or not always, but sometimes. And things like that. So I think if you're not a native speaker trying to learn the grammar, it must be so hard. I mean, my one boy he learnt Spanish, and he's like, Spanish is so easy. It's just in the comparison. Obviously, he's not he doesn't know the vocabulary and things like that. But he's talking about the rules of how you speak. You know, saying. I'm going to use the grass green now to darken a little bit. We're going to do what we did with the other leaves and start at the centre and then just work our way out to the edge. But he says that Spanish is phonetic, which means that the words just sound how they're spelt, which is great. I mean, what other language would have three words which are pronounced there, which are all spelt differently and have completely different meanings, or three words that sound do, and they all have different meanings. It's so confusing, isn't it? And where? And actually, I was talking to my niece the other day, and she says she gets confused with though, thorough, thought. You know, she knows what they mean, obviously, but when she comes to write it down, her mind suddenly goes, ah, which one is it? I always find thorough most difficult to spell. I don't know why. I often used to put thought instead of thorough. Anyway, no, through instead of thorough. See, it's confusing, isn't it? And some words just don't, the spellings are so confusing. You know, I've never been able to spell the word soldier, for example. It's just beyond me. We're going to grab the leaf green now. I'm just having a look at a few more photos of these. A lot of the berries don't have leaves in the pictures. There's one. Oops. Oh, I've just clicked on it. Okay. You know, I'm looking at the leaves and they are long and thin. So I don't think these leaves are actually meant to be them at all. But never mind. But I'm just adding a bit more dark colour here near the centre. It's funny because I feel that this green looks quite artificial. It doesn't look like a green from nature. And yet, yesterday I was looking up at the hill and at the fresh spring grass, and it looked this colour, you know, whereas, and I was saying to my kids, I was saying, look at the boys saying, look at this, you know, it looks just an artificial green. It's too fluorescent. It's they don't look at colour. I think when you do colouring, when you're involved with colour, you look at colours in quite a different way to other people, maybe. Okay, I don't like that yet. I'm going to add a yellow, I think, to it. Try and decide which one, whether to go. I'm going to go a bit brownish. I'm going to grab the dark Naples ochre. I think I want to, rather than doing a yellow which will make it more vibrant and stand out, I think I'd rather one a bit darker because it's set back. Our berries are much more forward. So I think it would be, sorry, just wipe my nose. It would be more likely to be a little bit shaded, whatever the word is. So I'm going to go over the whole leaf with this, and it might make it too yellowy, and we can always come back with another green. It's easy enough to keep. The good thing with polys is that you can keep layering and layering until they look the way you want them to look, you know. It's and this paper as well. Some paper doesn't take masses of layers, of course, but this paper is very good paper. It's I'm very happy to have lots of layers of colour. I'm happier with this now. I think it's working. I may stop in a minute though and have my coffee off camera while I look at what a mouse looks like. Well, I know what a mouse looks like. It looks like that. Let's try that again. I'll look at what colour the mouse should be. Right. I want to put a bit of shadow in some areas with the dark sepia. I did notice that I'd missed a bit when I was off camera. So I'm going to do it from over here. So I'm just going to do that where it's overlapping here. And there was another bit. Oh, here, under here, I wanted to put a bit more because I wanted it to really look like that branch is much higher up than this. I wanted to put quite a bit more shadow in under it, like that. That's better. Right, let's go up here. So where we're overlapping. Now we don't need to make it quite as dark like here because our greens are very light. But I'm just adding this in, and I might decide I want to make my green a bit darker after, but I thought if I put this in first it'll help me to have a look and decide. And I'm putting some around the berries, but you can't really see it because they're so dark anyway. But I feel like I need to do it because it should be there. I don't know if that makes sense. It does in my head. But when I said it out loud, it sounded a bit weird. Oh well. So just shadowing around. Oh, what happened to my voice? I need my coffee. I'd definitely be getting it in a minute. You can hear it. Terrible. I suppose I should have some water in here really, but do you like my coffee? I like hot drinks. I don't like cold drinks. I think it comes from living in a cold climate. Not used to cold drinks. That bit. Now, although I've coloured these berries in black already, the little bits on the ends I want to do a bit darker, so I'm going to try with my sepia, just going over them a little bit. Can't see them on all of them. There we go. Okay, I'm going to leave that for a minute, turn it off, look up a picture of a mouse and have a slurp of coffee. Hold on. Right, I have now got a picture of a mouse ready to use. We are going to start with the nose, the paws and the tail because I think they're a little bit easier than the fur, and also the fur might overlap them, so we need to do this as a layer underneath. So this is the light flesh, or the it's beige red, and we're going to do the nose and the paws. The claws, that one's gone green. Now I don't know with the tail how long it continues to be this colour. I think it will do it beyond do it up to there and we'll go over it. Okay, now how far up the hand does it go? I think that'll do. Now the picture that I've got, the nose is actually quite dark, so I'm going to use some cinnamon on it, but I'm going to sharpen it and then very gentle. Sort of go around the edge. Okay. Then their paws, I'm just going to use a little bit in between them. Not much, they're actually quite pale. The tail is at the bottom to sort of indicate a bit of shadow going on down there. Like that. Now, having a quick look. Yeah, tails are actually quite dark, so we won't worry too much with more. Now the ears. I'm going to use the beige red, the light flesh again. Just put a little bit on the inside of this ear, but it hasn't got a lot, so we're going to leave it there. Now I'm going to decide on some colour. Now I think I'm going to use a really pale brown. The raw umber is good, sharp, really sharp, because we are now colouring fur. I'm not going to be putting down a base layer, I'm going straight in with my fur. So here it is, the raw umber. Now the lines that you do for your fur, the length of those lines, you have to think carefully about the critter that you're colouring and its size. Now this wouldn't have a piece of fur that'll go all the way that long. They'd be very short and little, so just draw them in like that. They wouldn't all start in the same place, so try and take your pencil back and start them in different places so they're uneven. And I'm going to do oh, itchy eye, sorry, most of this in this colour, and then add some darker patches on top. So like here from the eye, we can't do different, can't start in different places, so we can do a few different lengths. Now if you're using a pencil that's quite thick and hard, you need to keep it sharpened, which is a bit tricky. Another thing you could do was see if you've got one that's a little bit thinner. I'm thinking maybe if you were using Prismacolors, you might have a very thin pencil from those Prismacolor set, which would be a little better, a little easier. You just have to keep sharpening, or you can just do it directional and hope that it just looks like fur. It probably will do quite well. I'm thinking this bit might be white. Yeah, not only am I doing fur, I'm going to challenge myself to do white. Wish me luck. It's actually going to be light grey. There's no way you can show up fur any other way. Now one way of making sure that it looks more furry is to go out of the lines, because if you're not so constrained by a line, then it looks shaggy and furry. So that's something you could consider doing. It's quite difficult actually doing that when we've been taught all our lives that you need to stay in the lines. And I'm suddenly telling you to go out the lines, and I'm not actually going out the lines myself at the moment either. So yeah, but it does make it things look more furry. Just going down to do the top of the tail. I'm going to put a little bit of this colour on the tail as well. Right down to the foot, I think, there. Just going to put a bit more on the back here, seems a little bit pale there. Now once I've done this light colour, I'm going to do the white bit next with some grey. I am going to use the cold grey 2, sorry, the warm grey 2. Warm grey 2. Let's give it a sharpen. Warm grey 2. That'll do. No, it doesn't need too much. Now we're going to add in some darker colours. Often seems to be almost quite brown. What's that? Yeah, I'm going to use the Van Dyke brown to do a little bit. I'm thinking here where the ear is, it would be shadowy here, so I'm going to put in some darker strokes of fur, which might look a bit like there's some shadow. And I'm also going to do some in here, it's a bit of the ear. I think it will be darker, possibly here too. Do the tiniest bit along there, because obviously that's supposed to be grey, not white, I mean. And then what's around the nose? Doesn't look to be much darker, so I'm going to do a little bit of darker along the bottom of the head where there will be some shadow. And then around the eye. Okay. Now this back leg here, it would be darker in there, there'll be some shadow. But also along the bottom. And this one. Just along the bottom of the body, really. Just sort of fade that up a bit. And there'll be a bit there. A bit in there. And where the ear is overlapping. And then I'm just going to put the old few lines here and there. Maybe a bit long. And along the bottom of this tail. Because in my photo, the tail is actually quite dark. Okay, we'll get somewhere. They're all different colours, this is the thing. I need to choose one and stick with it. Whereas I'm just sort of playing around doing lots of different colours. Let's use this colour. And just put a bit of this on and then that might be done. This is the bistre. And I'm just going to sort of add in a few bits here and there. Under the eye. I'm still sort of thinking about where might be dark and light. And just also just filling in a bit with a few strokes. Just trying to make it look a little bit more furry. I don't know how people do fur with Prismacolor, but they do. I guess you just use that really sharp setting on your dowel sharpener and then press so gently. I think I'd be breaking them all the time. I'm going to try to make the tail look a bit more shapely, looking a bit rubbish. I am going to use, yeah, I'm going to use the cinnamon a bit on the tail to, I'm trying to make it a bit darker on the edges, lighter in the middle, give it a bit more of a symmetrical look, but and now I'm going to use the Van Dyke brown on it, just to add some shadow. Right along the edge. Just try and leave a lighter patch in the middle, but not too much. And maybe a little bit of the same here. There, that's better. There he is. Now I'm going to think about background. I might go back and adjust other bits later, but I'm going to do the sort of background now. Now I've had several ideas and thoughts. I could either do just a blue to keep it really pale light and sort of set the scene. I could do it green, a pale green, and put some sort of blackberry and berry splodges in to make it look like we're looking into a thick bush, which I think would be fun, but we haven't got a lot of space to play with, and our foreground wouldn't really stand out. And of course you could leave it white, and I have to say I think it looks really nice with the white background because it really pops off the white. But I am going to do a background because I think it needs something, and I'm just going to start with something really pale, and I'm going to go for the blue option. I'm going to use the sky blue because it could be that we're highish up, because bushes, you know, do grow up against the sky, and the blue is quite pale, so it will help to, it won't sort of take over the picture, you know. Now with so much blank paper around this design, you could instead of doing a background here, you could do one round here. But for me that is extremely daunting and not something I'm going to do, but it is an alternative option. Also, I've gone out of the lines quite a few times, and by putting this blue in, it hides it. Not perfectly, but hides it a bit, so that's good too. It also doesn't look like I've just forgotten to do a background. Now when you're colouring large areas of colour and you're trying to keep it even, that's quite difficult, I think. But because on this particular picture we've got mostly small areas to fill in, it's a lot easier. Now when you're doing a larger area or a background area where you want to try and keep the colour reasonably even, then keep your pencil blunter. I know it feels wrong because you're going around all these details, but you might just be able to get away with colouring over the top of a few of them anyway. Probably won't really matter. And it will just look a lot neater. Now I tend to try and colour in a horizontal direction if I'm doing sky to make it look a little bit more realistic, I suppose. But rather than the round, but if you do a sort of round and round colouring action, which a lot of people do, that will look more like cloud, so that's all good. But I just find the horizontal works best for me. It looks more like sky. If you do a vertical, it might just look like rain. I don't want it to look rainy. I don't mind the rain, but some people do. It's raining this morning. I expect my hair's gone all frizzy. I only went out in it a little bit, but it only takes someone to say the word water and my hair goes frizzy. It's odd because I have to wash it to stop it frizzing, but then as soon as it rains on it, it goes frizzy. But I found some better products. It's behaving a bit better than it was, but it's very thin at the moment, I think, because of my age. So there. I'm thinking, now you could do some areas darker than others in the sky because skies aren't always even. But I don't want it to be too dark, so I think I'm going to leave it like that. You could, of course, do it so that you leave some white for clouds, but I didn't really think there was enough of an area for us to play with, really, to do that. I'm just looking at these leaves here, and I want to do a bit more with them before I finish, because I'm not 100% happy with them. I'm going to grab the permanent green and just put a bit on. I just feel like they're too pale all over, so I'm going to put a bit of this all over the whole leaf, just to sort of darken the whole thing. happier with that. I just felt the lightness of it was a bit distracting somehow for me. It made them stand out in a way that I wasn't intending them to. Yours might not look quite as light. It depends how heavy-handed you were with the original greens and the yellow and things. Okay, I want a little bit more definition in the veins again now, so I'm going to grab the dark sepia again. Just run it along. I know you're thinking, well, if you were to do a background on the page, what would you do all around it? I would probably do some splodges of pastel in, I would probably do some splodges in purple, dark purple, this sort of reddish colour and black, just sort of about that big. And then I would go all around it in a green. So it looked like sort of we're looking into a bush, you know, that sort of look. I'm just thinking if there's any more shadows I want to do. I think I could do with doing some in between the berries, but I don't think it's going to show up. Because where they're overlapping, they would create a shadow on each other. I also do think these need a shine. They don't look quite shiny enough for me, and they really are very shiny. So we are going to get a jelly roll pen. We've only got 8s and 10s in here, haven't we? Jelly roll 8. I'm trying to press fairly lightly because I don't want a really big divine splodge. I just want a little bit. And I'm going to do it on the blackberries too, just a tiny black. No, not. If you did that and you like it, that's good. If you did it and you don't like it, then if you weren't quick enough to rub it, this is what you do. You get your black pencil. You go back over it and it will knock off that white pen. Yep, there we go. So a little trick for you, but I put my hand down in the white pen on the elder, but I think we're fine. Okay, I'm just going to check out the mouse's eye, because I think that okay, I was just looking at the bit around the the actual centre of the eye, and it's grey. So I'm going to grab the cold grey. Actually, it's more of a warm grey. The warm grey 6. I'm just going to give it a sharpen. And we're going to do that little bit. There we go. I've also noticed got a little line there and a few bits here that aren't filled in. So those bits there are blackberry, this is black. I'm just going to do that and they'll disappear back. That line is a stem. Let's go for the permanent green olive for that. There we go. I'm just fussing about. Okay, I think I am going to leave it there. So there is our little mouse in the blackberry and elder. So yes, it is a very pretty book. I've had a lot of fun colouring that one. So I hope that was okay for you guys as well. Thank you so much for watching. I hope that you have a really super day and happy colouring.